Hello there, and welcome to Dream Past Diaries. I'm truly glad you've made it here. Maybe it's been a long day, or maybe you're the kind of dreamer who prefers to drift off to the sound of quiet thoughts and forgotten mysteries instead of counting sheep. Either way, tonight's story is yours to enjoy. You don't have to do anything now, just rest. Let your thoughts slow, your breath deepen, and your body grow lighter, as if gravity itself has begun to fade away.
In the quiet unfolding of Roman history, the story of Julius Caesar begins not with the thunder of armies or the clash of politics, but with the soft, steady movement of a young aristocrat navigating the intricate layers of Roman society, where every street, every courtyard, every ceremony, and every family connection contributed to the gentle shaping of a future statesman, and where Caesar, moving through the long echoing halls of his family home, learned the rhythms of Roman daily life long. Before he ever held public office, absorbing the rituals of morning greetings, the carefully repeated household prayers at the Lararium shrine, the delicate observance of social hierarchies, the expectations placed upon boys of noble families, the slow and steady grounding in rhetoric, language, and tradition that marked the path toward public life. And as he grew, he would find himself moving through Rome's crowded alleys and bustling forums where merchants arranged their goods with patient repetition, where senators moved in their elegant togas with deliberate slowness, and where priests carried out their rituals with a calm certainty that reminded everyone of the city's deep roots. And in this atmosphere, Caesar's identity was shaped by years of gentle learning, countless quiet conversations with teachers who drilled him in declamation and oratory, endless afternoons spent observing public debates, and long evenings spent hearing stories of his ancestors' achievements, all of which created in him not a sudden ambition but a slow-burning understanding of Rome's political and cultural landscape. And in time, his early adulthood was filled with equally gradual developments, such as his first modest appointments, his cautious alliances, his measured steps through the cursus honorum, and the slow accumulation of respect from those who noticed his eloquence, his confidence, and his deep awareness of Roman tradition. And though later generations would remember Caesar as a bold merely, as the years unfolded with the same patient rhythm that characterized all aspects of Roman public life, the political atmosphere surrounding Caesar became gradually denser, shaped by slow-building rivalries, carefully negotiated alliances, and long-standing traditions that guided every decision made within the Senate and the assemblies. And during this period, Rome itself seemed to breathe in a steady cadence, with senators strolling to the Curia in the early morning light, their footsteps echoing across stone pavements polished by centuries of wear, while scribes prepared tablets, clerks arranged scrolls, and lictors carried fasces in ritualized patterns of movement that were repeated day after day. And within this environment of steady bureaucratic processes, Caesar's presence grew subtly stronger, marked not by sudden dominance but by countless small interactions, speeches made in calm tones, favors exchanged quietly, and reforms introduced with a patient insistence that gradually won support among the city's common people. And meanwhile, in aristocratic households, discussions about Caesar's growing influence unfolded slowly around dining couches during long evening banquets where the lamps flickered, the wine was poured with unhurried gestures, and the conversations wound through topics of law, tradition, and worry about Rome's direction, all contributing to a spreading sense of concern that lingered in the minds of many senators. And although no single moment defined this shift, the gradual accumulation of unease became a subtle current running through the city's elite, a background tension that grew stronger with each passing month, leading to an increasingly cautious observation of Caesar's actions. And while he continued to present himself as a servant of the Republic, his influence expanded in a way that made some feel as though the familiar rhythms of Roman politics were beginning to alter, even if most citizens went about their daily chores, grinding grain. As Caesar's career moved steadily forward, the pace remained unhurried, shaped by years of service, long stretches of administrative duty, and the slow-building confidence that came from navigating the complexities of Roman provincial governance. And during his time abroad, particularly in Gaul, the landscape itself seemed to contribute to the gradual shaping of his reputation, with vast plains stretching beneath overcast skies, forests whispering with the passing of the wind, and the quiet routine of legionary life unfolding day after day as soldiers constructed camps, sharpened tools, tended their equipment, and wrote letters home in the dim glow of evening lamps. And although later retellings often emphasized the drama of conquest, the truth was that much of Caesar's extended command in Gaul consisted of long periods of waiting, planning, and repeating daily duties, which allowed him to develop a slow and steady rapport with his troops, who saw in him a commander committed to routines as much as victories. And back in Rome, His growing reputation cast an equally slow-moving shadow, prompting senators to discuss, in measured tones, whether such prolonged authority was healthy for the Republic, while families in the city continued their unchanging daily rituals of baking bread, lighting hearths, and following the familiar cycles of festivals and market days, only gradually becoming aware of Caesar's rising prominence. And when his time in Gaul finally drew toward its end, the question of how he would return to Rome gathered like a faint, persistent cloud on the horizon, one that grew slowly but steadily darker as political tensions deepened. And although most citizens could not yet imagine the turmoil that awaited, those who observed the careful shifts in alliances, the slow withdrawal of patience among certain senators, and the stillness before the inevitable change could sense that Rome was beginning to drift, inch by inch, toward a moment that would alter its fate. When Caesar finally returned to the center of Roman politics, the transition unfolded not in a sudden rush but in a series of slow, deliberate steps marked by negotiations, reforms, and the gradual acceptance, sometimes reluctant, sometimes enthusiastic, of his increasing authority. And as he took on the role of dictator, the city responded with its usual rhythm, continuing the familiar sequence of market days, festival preparations, ritual sacrifices, and public gatherings, while the presence of Caesar's statues and honors accumulated quietly throughout Rome, appearing in forums, temples, and public squares where artisans carve his likeness with patient, methodical movements. And although many citizens appreciated the stability he brought after years of civil conflict, a lingering concern took hold among certain senators who, during long evenings filled with softly flickering lamplight and the murmur of restrained conversations, expressed worry about how far Caesar's reforms would reach, how long his authority would last, and whether the Republic's old structures could survive under the weight of a single individual's power. And in these discussions, which unfolded gently over cups of watered wine, the unease grew slowly, building like sediment at the bottom of a river, subtle yet cumulative, especially as Caesar continued to introduce new appointments, new civic plans, and new reorganizations that altered the traditional flow of senatorial influence. And though he often spoke of restoring Rome's strength, the perception among some was that the Republic's established rhythm, its careful balance of shared authority and rotating magistracies, was being replaced by a slower, heavier monotony centered around one man, a shift that many feared could not be reversed. As the months passed beneath Rome's gentle Mediterranean skies, the Senate's concerns settled into a kind of quiet heaviness, a subdued and lingering anxiety that accompanied their daily routines, so that even as they fulfilled their normal responsibilities, reviewing petitions, debating minor legal matters, managing provincial affairs, they carried with them the slow, persistent weight of uncertainty regarding Caesar's growing power. And in their homes, decorated with mosaics depicting mythological scenes and cooled by the faint breeze drifting through shaded courtyards, senators found themselves discussing these matters in hushed tones with friends and family, repeating the same observations with the steady rhythm of people trying to make sense of a changing world, noting the increasing honors bestowed upon Caesar, the unusual length of his dictatorship, and the gradual erosion of traditions they had long taken for granted. And though many appreciated the order and stability that had followed the civil wars, there remained a faint but constant worry that Caesar's position might become permanent, altering the Republic's structure in ways that would affect future generations. And because these concerns grew slowly rather than explosively, they produced a diffuse sense of tension rather than open conflict, a tension that settled over the city like a soft haze, perceptible but not oppressive, influencing conversations, political calculations, and the way senators regarded one another as they walked along the marble floors of the Curia, each one quietly wondering who supported Caesar fully, who harbored doubts, and who might eventually take action. The movement toward conspiracy emerged with the same slow, measured pace that characterized so much of Roman political life, beginning as nothing more than scattered conversations, exchanged cautiously between a few senators who shared the same unease. And as these men met repeatedly, always in private, always speaking in calm, restrained voices, the idea of resisting Caesar's authority took shape little by little, not as a sudden decision but as an accumulation of fears, hopes, traditions, and personal pride, all mixing together in a quiet, gradual evolution. And in these early meetings, held in secluded gardens or small rooms lit by simple oil lamps, the conspirators discussed the nature of the Republic, reminiscing about the old ways, repeating stories of past magistrates, and wondering aloud whether Rome could ever return to the balanced governance that had once defined it. And as these discussions unfolded, the group slowly expanded to include others who felt the same steady discomfort about Caesar's direction, until the conspiracy became not a dramatic faction but a loosely connected web of individuals bound by a shared, quietly spoken conviction. And all the while, life in Rome continued with its usual gentle monotony, with market vendors arranging goods, children playing in sunlit courtyards, and workers repairing streets and aqueducts without any sense of the quiet storm forming within the Senate's upper ranks, and even the conspirators themselves moved through their days with apparent normalcy, greeting friends, attending public events, and participating in routine debates, all while carrying the calm but growing weight of their secret intentions. As the conspiracy matured, the days leading toward the Ides of March unfolded with a quiet inevitability, marked not by frantic plotting but by the slow and steady acceptance among the conspirators that the moment for action would eventually arrive. And through this period, Caesar himself moved calmly through his duties, reviewing public projects, receiving visitors, and presiding over the Senate with the same composed authority he had always displayed, unaware of the whispering undercurrent that flowed beneath the surface of public life. And as time passed, the conspirators continued meeting, each conversation layered upon the last, building toward their eventual decision, which seemed less like a sudden choice and more like the final natural step in a long chain of slowly developing thoughts. And all the while, Rome carried on with its peaceful daily routines, with artisans carving stone blocks for new buildings, farmers bringing produce into the city at dawn, and priests conducting rituals to mark the changing seasons, none of them suspecting that a turning point in Roman history was approaching. And even the conspirators felt a strange sense of calm, as though they were being carried gently by the currents of tradition and duty, moving toward the appointed day with a mixture of resignation and purpose, quietly preparing themselves for what was to come without the drama or urgency that later stories would attribute to them. After Caesar's assassination, the response within Rome unfolded with the same unhurried pace that had characterized so many earlier events, for although the act itself was sudden, the city's emotional reaction developed slowly, beginning with quiet confusion, then drifting into a soft mixture of mourning, uncertainty, and contemplation as citizens attempted to understand what had happened and what it meant for the future of the Republic. And in the days that followed, people gathered in small